And I kind of laugh about it now because I think, in one of our meetings, that trainer actually told me, he's like, Kaitlin, you're never going to hit your goals because you're so stressed out. Welcome to the Feel Great with Kait podcast, where you'll learn how to master your health to achieve more in life. I'm your host, Kaitlin Borncamp, a CPA turned nutritional therapy practitioner. Together, we'll be unpacking powerful forces that are shaping your daily habits, providing effective ways to account for your health with practical strategies, and uncovering powerful insights to why your metabolic health is the key to fuel your energy, longevity, and success. My mission is to help more high achievers like you stop trading your health for your wealth. Let's dive in. Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Feel Great with Kait podcast. I am so excited to be with you here today because I'm going to be talking about the 4 pillars for peak performance from a physical health perspective, all about how when you support your metabolic health, your physical body's health, and your brain health, you are able to achieve a higher level of peak performance in your life, in your career, and just personally for yourself. Because if you're listening to this, you're like me and you're a high achiever, and we like to get a lot of shit done. So that means you're going to need the energy, you're going to need the focus, and you're definitely going to need the drive and motivation to do all of the stuff you want to do. And I think when I was coming up with, this framework that I now have used for over a year with my coaching clients, it's around the fact of what is required, but making it as small as possible. So as efficient as possible, especially from we don't need to add 100 more things to our to-do list every single day, but we need to know what's the bare minimum that we can kind of do in order to feel our best. And then on the opposite end, what are some easy to implement things that we can do that actually have a really huge ROI? So in this episode, I'm going to be going over that framework, the 4 pillars of peak performance. And then in future episodes, you can tune back in to learn more as we deep dive into some of these topics more specifically. So, I think the first pillar is not going to surprise anyone, nutrition, but I want to explain to you a little bit more around what nutrition actually means, because if you're like me, I used to think of nutrition as just simply the food that we eat. What are we putting on our plate? What are we chewing in our mouths? What are we eating? And you're like, it just kind of stops there, right? I know I need to eat more protein. I should probably eat healthier whole foods. Okay, sure. I know I shouldn't eat junk food. I shouldn't eat fast food. It's like, if you're like most people, that's kind of where it starts, is eating less crap and eating more whole foods. But there is so much more to nutrition than just simply the food that you choose to eat. And some of these key areas that are included in this pillar are also hydration. So around how much fluid and minerals are we consuming that enable our cells to function properly. So think of, for this one, I like to give my clients this metaphor or example of, if you're not properly hydrated, your cells in your body are going to be more like a raisin, right? Not literally, but just bear with me here. The edges are going to be a little bit more rough. They're not going to be able to glide or be as smooth in your body. But if you're well hydrated, your cells are going to be more like a chia seed. Okay. So we want our cells to be more like a chia seed, not a dried up raisin, because every other function and process within the body relies on the health of each cell. And then next up in this pillar of hydration, or in this pillar of nutrition, is supplements. So this really goes hand in hand. I think most people understand, okay, well, sometimes we can't get all the nutrients that we need from food. So then we look into getting them from supplements. This category could be, many episodes long, so I'm not going to dive into it right now. But really, if you are taking certain supplements, I would implore you to get some, specific assessment of what your body might need. I kind of view supplements as kind of 2 main journeys or categories, if you will. One would be, what are some of the supplements I should be taking for simple maintenance? Just right off the top of my head, for me particularly, that includes, I take magnesium on a daily basis. I take vitamin D on a daily basis. And then I also think of the second type of supplementation that we might need is for a specific purpose or for a specific protocol of something that we're trying to achieve or change within our body. So that could be something like a gut healing protocol. That could be something like a brain healing protocol, or maybe you're trying to do a detox, something along those lines where that supplement regimen isn't something you're going to be taking every day, because quite honestly, we shouldn't be pushing our body that hard every single day. And then also within nutrition, a couple of really important topics. This includes digestion and blood sugar. And those are two key areas I will talk a lot more about in future episodes because they're so complex and because they impact our nutrition on such a greater basis than we know or than we, typically think of. And one example I can just kind of give you here is, back in, gosh, I forget what year it was, probably around 7 or 8 years ago, I was working with a personal trainer and I told him, hey, just give me the perfect macro plan and then I'll continue to I was doing CrossFit at the time. I'm crushing it at the gym. Just tell me what to eat. And that's like 1 + 1 = 2, right? That's all I need for the formula of, looking and feeling my best. And what I didn't know at the time was that by way of me not counting or not keeping track of how I was digesting my food, was I sitting in a calm and relaxed state? How was my bowel movements, right? Those all impact and indicate how well my body's actually utilizing the food that I was eating. And I kind of laugh about it now because I think, in one of our meetings, that trainer actually told me, he's like, Kaitlin, you're never going to hit your goals because you're so stressed out. And at the time I was working, in public accounting, busy seasons in tax. And, if you're working in any of those industries, that tax season and busy season in general can be really intense, really stressful, really long days. And I had no idea what he was talking about. So we'll come back to the topic of stress, but just know that digestion is required in order to utilize the nutrients and utilize those macros. Like if you're counting macros, you best bet you need to make sure you're actually digesting your protein in order for you to kind of get that credit or be able to utilize it in your body. Another big one in the topic of nutrition is blood sugar. And this one I'm becoming much more passionate and interested in because I see this pattern within my clients of unbalanced blood sugar so often. I think blood sugar is now being kind of looked at as sort of the canary in the coal mine because it's one of the things that's most easily able to get out of balance with our current modern diet and lifestyle. And it's also easily able to be measured. So for example, some of my clients pop on the continuous glucose monitor and we're able to see their daily, blood sugar levels in real time. And we have some really profound insights. So in order for nutrition to be working in our favor, we also need to make sure we're not doing any other harm to the rest of the metabolism, and balancing blood sugar is one of the key ways that we do that. And then lastly, in this first pillar of nutrition is around avoiding certain things that cause us harm. So avoiding toxic food, avoiding toxic supplements, and even medications could be included in this category. So I'm not going to dive deep into that, but this kind of gets in the idea of kind of that processed food category of certain additives, certain colors. And most recently right now is getting a lot of press because food producers are now having to recall or take out some of those food colors. I think red dye number 5 and 40 was recently taken out or required to be taken out in the next couple of years. So we're seeing a lot of trends change, but we do want to be avoiding anything that's going to cause us harm as well. So you can quickly see how the topic of nutrition expands far beyond just what we're choosing to put on our plate. And it expands way far beyond just calorie counting or even macro counting. And I want you to take, one takeaway from this topic of nutrition is that when you hear of things in the media around certain nutrients or, certain diet fads or things like that, just know that so much focus on just what we're eating is not the complete picture for nutrition, and that we need to be supporting these other areas as well in order for our body to be properly absorbing, digesting, and utilizing the nutrients in our food. And that was a huge thing that I've learned in my journey of becoming, certified in this topic, because like I said, I used to think it was just simply, eating the food on your plate and, best plan of approach was just to track macros. And I thought I was doing really well, but I had so much more to learn. Okay, so moving on, we are on the second pillar of the 4 pillars of peak performance, and it's rest and sleep. Obviously, this is not going to be shocking to anyone who's been on a health journey for a little while, because you felt physically in your body just how important getting sleep is. I know for myself, if I don't sleep well, I feel sort of this dead brain, feeling like I'm trying to tap into energy, but there's nothing really there. And definitely if I have too many hard training days without enough recovery, my body just feels physically drained, where I can't really push myself as hard. I definitely don't have the strength in and outside of the gym. So this category of sleep and rest is super important. And what's included in this one, of course, is quality sleep. So getting around 8 hours or more of sleep per night. But more than that, it also includes syncing your circadian rhythm to the natural fluctuations of sunlight throughout the day, which we'll talk way more about in future episodes. Also includes relaxation. So inviting this idea that simply doing less, maybe not doing necessarily nothing. For us high achievers, we don't like doing nothing, but this idea of doing less and just relaxing, being content, allows our body to restore itself, allows our body to repair itself, and that rest can actually be some of the most productive stuff that we do. And it's required. So just to give you kind of a baseline, a professional that I was working with last year, she's a nurse practitioner and also certified in Institute of Functional Medicine, gave me sort of this baseline of, we as, busy professionals should be in a calm or content state for around 75% of our day, waking hours, and be in a, stressed state around 25% or less of our day. And I thought that was a really interesting, allocation of time, and gives us some good kind of baseline to go off of, where we know there are good types of stress, there are good types of stimulation. Exercise is one of the main ones. And, to be honest, there's a good amount of stress that our body can adequately handle with us still being able to function well. But our body is physical, right? So we'll talk about this too, around when we're stressed, our body's not able to rest. And so having that baseline of, okay, we need to be in a relaxed, calm state for the majority of our day in order for our body to be able to do all the things that it's doing without us even telling it. And then another category, another option under this category is regular recovery from a physical, mobility perspective. And one way I want you to think about this is that you are only able to get those gains in the gym to the extent that you're able to rest and recover from it, from that workout. And this was a big thing that I finally realized, again, trying to do CrossFit in a really high stress period of my life, that actually rest is some of the most productive work that we can do. So, permission to go take that 20-minute bath at the end of a really hard day, or when you're really pushing yourself at the gym, or actually if you want to, this is something I've done too. If I really want tomorrow to be a heavy leg day, sitting in a bath for around 10 or 15 minutes the night before really helps give my body that nice recovery, where I wake up and I just feel like I have a lot more energy in my limbs. I feel a lot more centered in my brain, and I'm able to make a higher amount of, mind muscle connection at the gym the next day. So again, when you kind of reframe this for yourself, that, sleep is not unproductive, it's actually some of the most productive things, your whole metabolism is able to shift because it's able to repair and do the things that it needs to do in order to support what else you want to be doing, right? Again, going back to, this is around supporting your physical health so that you can achieve your peak performance in all other areas of your life. And just to kind of take a step back here too, I really have come to this thought so many times working with clients, especially, CPAs, busy professionals, where we are so much challenged, or we're faced with the challenge of competing priorities. And it really does come down to, do you think of your body as a robot or as a living human being? Because if we think of ourselves as a robot, then that's when we start to think sleep is optional. I don't really need to rest and recover. I just push, 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 go, go, go. And, a couple things can happen is eventually you'll be forced to face that, quite in fact, your body is not a robot, unfortunately, right? And I know that this happens at different speeds and different rates, but I have heard so many personal, firsthand accounts of people who pushed themselves to that limit and they were forced to slow down, meaning they had a bad health consequence that either put them in the hospital, or they themselves, just pushed themselves to burnout, mental and physical burnout, where they were forced to take a leave of absence from work. And so I don't want that for you, right? I don't want that for anyone. And I definitely don't want anyone who's gone through something like that to put themselves in a situation where they're going to experience it again. So start to listen to your body, start to lean into what feels good for the rest portion. And we all know how much sleep impacts our performance. So get some good quality sleep too. Okay, moving into the third pillar is movement. And again, when you guys hear, like, oh, duh, Kaitlin, nutrition, sleep, movement, of course. But again, what is included within this movement category is more comprehensive than when you typically just think of, movement. The first thing that probably came to your mind is going to the gym or crushing a workout for 30 to 60 minutes several times a week, something with resistance training or maybe something with cardio, but it's so much more than that. Okay. So I know from my personal experience that I I'm laughing because there's at one point, similar time as the story before, fast forward a year after doing CrossFit, I then had to go do physical therapy 6 months for my right shoulder and then another 6 months for my right knee because I was not doing adequate movement throughout the day. I was not doing any mobility in order to be keeping up with the CrossFit style of working out. And I was young. I think at the time I might have been, I don't know, 25 or 26, so young. And so I'm like, oh my goodness, if this is happening to me now, like what's going on? I should be in my prime health. I shouldn't be hurting after going to the gym. And I learned so much after going to that physical therapy place for about a year, where one of the main things I learned was how unbalanced my muscle activation was. So I was very I was very anterior dominant, which means like the front of my quads, the front of my legs, my quads were doing most of the work when I was doing squats and any sort of movement like that. And then I had really weak posterior, which meant my hamstrings and my glutes weren't firing. They weren't very strong. And that's what caused the issue in my knee. And then similarly for my shoulders, I was very strong in the front of my shoulder, but had very weak back muscles, some of the smaller muscles like rhomboids and other things that help stabilize the shoulder. And it really caused me to understand a new thing, which was that it's not really about how hard you're pushing yourself in the gym because, don't tempt me with a good time. I am so competitive. I always push myself in all the CrossFit workouts, which is great. Until it wasn't. And because I didn't really know too much about these other categories under this, which is mobility, flexibility, and mind muscle connection are extremely important when we're talking about staying limber, staying active for, pain-free, and as well as staying active for years to come. So included under the movement category is those things I mentioned. It also includes, of course, the basics of strength and endurance, but it also includes posture and alignment. And so, just note to self for anybody who's sitting right now, just to sit up a little bit straighter in your chair, right? Activate those back muscles a little bit, start to strengthen, keep your chin back, start to strengthen your neck muscles. We want to be in good posture throughout the day. But even more than that is the daily movement around the rest of the day. So if you're listening to this, one of the number one things I hear from people I talk to is, yeah, I have fitness down, like I have a pretty good workout plan. I go to the gym 3+ times a week. I'm working with a personal trainer, yada, yada. It's like, okay, a lot of us in public accounting or who have come from, public accounting, I think we naturally have our fitness routine down because if we didn't, we'd kind of go crazy. Maybe that's just me. Okay. No, but what I mean by that is that I think it's such a physical activity is such an easy one to know. Are you doing it? Are you not doing it? But where we often fall short, myself included, is that we need to make sure we're getting regular movement throughout the day as well. So what this means tactically is that when I was going to CrossFit for 1 hour a day in the morning and then literally sitting at my desk for 14 to 16 hours a day, the rest of the day, I was not in a good place. I was not getting enough daily movement. So we can't just go push our bodies really hard for, 1 hour in the morning or whatever, and then be stagnant the rest of the day. Our bodies will not function optimally. There's many reasons that go into that. But basically what we want to be doing is increasing daily steps, increasing daily movement. That can be walking, that can be yoga, that can be playing with your kids or your dog. It really can include a lot of different things. And most notably, what it does not include is sitting at your desk all day long. So how do we combat that, right? Because the whole premise of this podcast is to help more busy professionals stop trading your health for your wealth. That's what I'm on a mission to do. And so you'll hear throughout some of these episodes really tactical tips. And so on that note, for this one thing you can do, again, sitting up straight helps your posture, but go track your total steps each day. Or if you're like, Kaitlin, I really don't have time to go for a 30-minute walk in the afternoon. I cannot break away from my computer. What you can do then is super simple desk workouts. Go ahead and do, 50 air squats at your desk. Or if you have a little bit more movement in the clothes that you're wearing, you can do 50 jumping jacks. You can do 10 push-ups. You can do 20 lunges, right? Go ahead and get some movement in. Or if you're just not feeling that level of intensity, you can even do some simple planks on the ground, some push-ups on the wall. really anything to get your blood flow moving, and most importantly, to get you from being stagnant at your desk all day long. All right, so that concludes the third pillar, which was movement. Let's move into the fourth pillar of peak performance, which is what I like to call stress resilience. Because, raise your hand if you've ever taken a workshop or training on how to manage stress. And I got to tell you, I've taken many, and I feel like I still don't know how to quote unquote manage stress. I'm like, what does that even mean? Because the reality is that stress is different for every single person. It's one of the most elusive topics, especially when it's connected to physical health, right? Because I think we can all know, what am I eating? How much am I moving? How much am I moving? How much am I sleeping? Those are all quantifiable. But our stress that we're internalizing is not necessarily quantifiable, at least not yet. We're getting some better wearables on the market. But this category of stress resilience is absolutely critical. It's critical because of what I've already mentioned, because when we're not in a rested state, we can't repair our body. But it's also one of the biggest things of not the biggest thing, but one of the biggest issues, right? When we talk about which one's not like the others in this pillar, in these four pillars, we have nutrition, sleep, movement, and now stress resilience. Basically, the other three are constructive things that we want to do more of, right? Stress resilience is something we want to decrease our stress in our body. Okay, so that's what makes a difference. And the main reason for this is that we want to regulate our nervous system. I keep coming back to so many different, scientific studies, books that talk about how we can perform better, how to support different areas of our physical health and also our mental health. And the silver lining in all of this is that your nervous system has to be regulated in order for you to function properly. Okay, so nervous system regulation is one of the number one bullets under this category. And then we get into how do we actually increase resilience? So think about this one as how can we increase our capacity to go through the same level of activity throughout the day, but not feel as stressed. So increasing your stress resilience means you can do more without decreasing the workload or the demand on your time. It doesn't bother you as much. You get through it quicker. You have more energy after it. Those are some kind of indicators there. Some other things more practically related to, again, coming at it from the lens of busy professionals, especially if you're like me in consulting or, public accounting, you are constantly being asked of things, right? So these next two will be very relevant for you, and they are reducing distractions and delegating work. Okay, so we must do those things if we are going to reduce our stress each day. Reducing distractions, of course, is around, just as it sounds, physical distractions, most of the time digitally, right? What do you have popping up on your screen for emails? Are you constantly getting Teams notifications? Things like that. And then the other one is around delegating work. And really, I'm going to talk much more in depth about this one in the future because it's pretty nuanced depending on what your role is. But oftentimes I find that people with the highest stress, we tend to think that we have to do it all, or it can't, if I want it done right, I have to do it myself type of thing. We're carrying excess stress unnecessarily, so we must learn how to delegate effectively. And then there's a couple of other things that are really required here in order to have optimal stress resilience. Those include a positive mindset or reframing negative thoughts to be something more constructive, connection to others, being plugged into your family, your friends, social circles, getting out of your house, being connected to other humans physically, and then nature, being able to be a part of nature, spend time outside in nature, and just realize that at the end of the day, we are also nature. And then lastly, in the stress resilience category is having personal passions that you are able to spend time doing. And this can be, whole open category for different topics, but basically those are the things that are going to help us have higher stress resilience and again, be able to handle the same amount or more demand and, quote unquote, stressful things without feeling the stress, right? That's how you increase your stress resilience. So that was a really quick breakdown of the four pillars of peak performance. Again, those were nutrition, sleep and rest, movement, and stress resilience. These are some of the same principles I use, or these are the principles I use within my practice when I'm doing, corporate workshops and speaking, as well as when I'm working with executive health coaching clients. And I'm always open to learning more. It'll continue to evolve as I learn new information. But at its core, I think those four are here to stay. I really do think that this is pretty comprehensive and based on a lot of different professionals and doctors and books that I've read, definitely based on the training that I've had. But again, like I said, I always, reserve the permission and space to become smarter and to learn more. But yeah, in this podcast, I'm going to be diving deeper into each one of these topics and going around or offering, I should say, specific tactical ways that you can improve it. Because I think that while it's important to understand the information, and it's kind of fun, if you're like me, it's fun to learn. I enjoy learning. The really important part is the application and actually implementing changes and making it relevant to our life. So that's what I'm really passionate about, is providing you those specific tips. And as always, I look forward to catching you in the next episode. Just a reminder that the information shared on this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only and is not intended to be medical advice. It should not be used to treat, diagnose, or cure any medical condition. Always consult your physician or qualified healthcare provider before making changes to your health regimen or medications. Kaitlin Borncamp and Health Supply LLC, DBA Feel Great with Kait, disclaim any liability for outcomes resulting from the use of this content.